What's going on? What's going on? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Let me make sure this thing's working. All right, y'all, what's going on? So today we're gonna have a conversation about the Tuskegee experiment. So it's important that we control the narrative. It's important that we control our media. It's important that we control all of these things. When I come on here on Sundays and I do these videos about our history as it pertains to the healthcare system, it becomes very obvious why it's so important to make sure that we can control our actual narrative and control our stories, because a lot of it has been twisted. A lot of it, like we're going to talk about today with this Tuskegee experiment, we're going to talk about how the media really framed Eunice Rivers, which was the nurse in this experiment, really framed her as the actual villain. Now, she did have a part to do with it, but the way they framed her was completely inaccurate. So this is why we have to control our media. We got to control the narrative. We have to control all of this that pertains to us. So once again, welcome. Come on in. Please go ahead, share, subscribe, like this video. Like the video. That way we can, have this video pushed so other people can come in and join this conversation. So once again, my name is Edward Williams. I'm the founder and creator of Health by Any Means Necessary. Our mission here at Health by Any Means Necessary is to radically improve the health conditions of our community by any means necessary. And today we're going to talk about leaving Tuskegee. Okay, so leaving Tuskegee, the story of bad blood, and we're going to really explain why it's so important to be careful with the words we choose to use when as it pertains to our health as a community and also as our family. So what's going on, y'all? Appreciate y'all showing up. Appreciate y'all showing up. So real quick, type 5 in the chat if you are familiar with the Tuskegee experiment, and type 6 if you have no idea what we're talking about. Do me a quick favor, real quick. If you know about the Tuskegee experiment, type 5. If you've never heard about it before, type 6. All right, so we have some 6, we have some 5s. Yeah. So I'm going to tell you right now, the majority of our community has no idea as pertains to the Tuskegee experiment, and they have no idea as pertains to many of the stories that have taken place in this book. And I feel strongly that not knowing the history of the things that took place in this book, the atrocities, and our history here in America as pertains to health, is the major reason why we remain complacent as it pertains to actually improving our health. It is the main reason, I believe, that we are lacking the self-care. It's the main reason why we believe that someone's just going to magically take care of us. It's because we don't understand the actual history. Because if we understood the history, trust me, we would make sure that we have bodied everything about our health, everything about our physiology, everything about our anatomy. We will make sure that we are our primary care providers. We would actually create our own system. We would actually do all those things, because if we only knew a fraction of the things that took place in the history and also right now as well, we wouldn't even go close to this so-called healthcare system. So today's title is called Leaving Tuskegee. I thought it was a catchy title. Leaving Tuskegee. The bad blood. So essentially what we're talking about is the story about the Tuskegee syphilis experiment. So make sure when you're talking about this, we call it what it is. It's the Tuskegee syphilis experiment. It's not the Tuskegee study. It's not the Tuskegee research. Those are coded languages. Let's call it what it is. Really, it's the Tuskegee syphilis terrorism experiment. So essentially, we're talking about a time frame back in the 30s, early 30s, actually late 20s, 1929, early 30s. And around 1932, the United States Public Health Services decided to start a study called the Tuskegee syphilis experiment. And the purpose of this experiment was to see how, and also if you want to know where I'm getting this information from, once again, I recommend that everybody gets this book. This is Medical Apartheid by the sister here at Washington. She does a great job in this book. We are actually reading from chapter 7, I believe. Yeah, so if you have the book, turn to chapter 7, page 157. All right. page 157, inside of medical apartheid. That's where all this is coming from. If you don't have the book, you can go over to Wikipedia. You know, I know Wikipedia is not always the best, but from what I've read today, I skimmed over it today. For the most part, the information lines up with the information that she has in the research that I've done. So if you don't have the book, what I'll do is kind of go back and forth between the book and also the Wikipedia article as well too. So we're talking about a clinical study that was conducted between 1932 and 19 all the way through 1972. Now, real quick, do the math. Do the math. 1932 to 1972. That's 40 years. That is 40 years of an experiment. And so the purpose of the study was to observe the natural history of untreated syphilis in the African American man. Now, there's so many moving parts to the story that is just sickening. That once again makes, once you understand the things that took place, it just doesn't make sense to actually trust this healthcare system by any means and any stretch of the imagination. So we're talking about a study that took place for 40 years. This is a study that took place in Alabama. We're talking about a group of 600 men. These men were sharecroppers. So if you know anything about sharecroppers, especially at this time, essentially it was a upgraded form of slavery. Many of these men were barely making $1 a day. They were under the poverty line. And even that $1 a day they were making, they didn't see it, because most of these men, most of these families, most of the sharecroppers, especially in that area, were actually indebted to the actual farmers, the people who owned the land. So everything they were making, they never got to keep. They never kept themselves, because they had to actually pay back the actual landowners. They didn't even own the bags that they had. And so once again, we're seeing the hustle just being updated. You're still getting hustled. It just looks different, right? And same thing in 2019. Many of us still getting hustled. Just looks a little different. So this is a study, the United States Public Health Services, not some small group, not some group of people who just hate black people. Nah, this is the United States Public Health Services. Are they still around now? Do they still exist? I don't know. Y'all let me know. So essentially, this took place around the Tuskegee University, which is a historically black college in Alabama. They took 600 men. They were all sharecroppers for the most part. They were under the actual poverty line as far as their money goes. And of those 600 men, and Harriet Washington corroborates the information that I'm about to read right now, 399 of those men were said to already have contracted syphilis. And 201, they're saying, that did not have syphilis. Now, there is a back and forth, or there was a back and forth between were these men actually injected with syphilis, or did they already just have it? So we already know for a fact, well, as far as the actual literature is saying, 399 of them already had it, 201 did not. Now, the government documents themselves said that they injected several men with the actual syphilis virus. Now, Harriet Washington, in her book and also in her presentations, she's saying that that's not true. And so, I'm still kind of looking into why she's saying that that's not true, and why they're claiming that they did inject a couple men with it. So, I'm still going to lean on Harriet Washington's word, because the sister has gone through and laid out so many receipts, and she's done so much work. So now, how did they convince these men that they should be treated? Well, this experiment came in the guise, it came disguised as free healthcare. And so this is why I say, I know whenever we talk about reparations, what do they say? They say free healthcare, right? And I'm telling you, free healthcare is not what you want. It's not what you want. And so they came into the community. They were plastering flyers all over the place. They were saying that if you have bad blood, we will give you free healthcare. What the hell is bad blood? Well, bad blood is this vague term that included everything. You got a cough, you got bad blood. It burns when you urinate, you got bad blood. Heart disease, bad blood. Kidney disease, bad blood. Syphilis, bad blood. And so bad blood was essentially the bucket for everything that was considered to be bad in African Americans. And African Americans were the only ones who had bad blood. Bad blood was said to be passed on from generation to generation. And also, people will also say that, mama got it, daddy got it, I got bad blood. And so you always heard bad blood, bad blood, bad blood. Now, people really didn't really understand what bad blood was. They just knew that they had bad blood. And so the medical institution at that time understood that this is something that we claimed to have and claimed to have passed on, and we didn't even know about it. And so, with the use of using the term bad blood plus free medical care, they knew that they could make this whole experiment take place. All they had to do was continue to use the vague term of bad blood, and that was very scary. It was very it was they didn't understand exactly what was going on, and so that's the term they continued to use. And what I would say is, if you ever watched the movies called Miss Evers Boys, Miss Evers Boys. So there's a couple issues with that movie. You can watch it. I mean, check it out, watch it. But that movie was essentially a hit. It was a hit job on Eunice Rivers. Eunice Rivers was the black nurse. Essentially that movie placed the whole entire blame on that black nurse, Eunice Rivers. And so, there's a lot of valid points in the movie, a lot to be taken from the movie. Especially as far as Lawrence Fishburne's, role in the movie as well too. So there's a lot of accuracies in the movie, but the underlying purpose of that movie was to actually place the blame into Eunice Rivers on her part. But Eunice Rivers was the lowest on the totem pole, and she honestly believed that she was actually helping out these brothers in this area. So be very careful with the movie. A lot of valid points, but in that movie, when the doctor was explaining what they had, he was like, you guys have syphilis. We're going to treat you. We're going to help you. We're going to cure you. And syphilis is a disease that it causes infection to the genitals. It's going to remain latent for so many years, and then it's going to kill you. And the men were just standing around like, what? And so Eunice came in the movie. She said, and also was documented as well too. She said, y'all got bad blood. There's some little things on y'all that's going to kill you, and it's going to make you have heart disease, neurological disease, and you won't be able to actually have relations with your wife. And so you constantly kept hearing the term bad blood, bad blood, bad blood. But when I hear the term bad blood back then, I think of it runs in my family today. Because the reason why we have to, we always say it. We say it right now. I used to say it myself too. High blood pressure, it runs in my family. Diabetes, it runs in my family. High cholesterol, it runs in my family. Obesity, it runs in my family. PCOS, it runs in my, so many things that we continuously say, it runs in my family, it runs in my family, it runs in my family. Do you really know what that means? And do you also know that that's not true? The same way that bad blood did not just run in those people's, the sharecroppers at the time, it didn't run in those brothers' vein. It didn't run in their vein. What ran in their vein was the actual belief that they are innately dysfunctional. And so updated to today, from 1932 all the way to 2019, what are we constantly saying? Doctors like, do you have any history of high blood pressure? Yeah, it runs in my family. My dad got it. My mom got it. What about diabetes? Yeah, it runs in my family. My mom got it. My dad got it. These are preventable conditions. These are lifestyle conditions. They don't run in your family. What runs in your family is the actual eating habit, the lifestyle, and also the mentality that surrounds this actual idea. And so what they did was exploit the term bad blood. They understood that most people were afraid of it, and they would do anything they could to actually get rid of it. So they came in. They came in with the free healthcare, letting these brothers know that what did they say? They said you're going to get free healthcare, free meals, and free burial insurance as well too. And so they were going to be guaranteed that they were going to be taken care of as far as the food goes and the burial goes, and also the free healthcare. Like it's like, you're going to get free healthcare. For whatever that means, you're going to get free healthcare. Now, initially, the men were told that this will be a 6-month experiment. So you have 600 black men. They're being told that they have bad blood and that this bad blood is going to kill them if they don't get treated. The whole time, the whole entire staff, with the exception of Eunice Rivers, she honestly didn't know anything about it. The whole entire staff knows we have no intentions on treating these Negroes. We have no intentions on actually giving them real medication. We're going to sit back and document and see how this disease affects them. And so what Harry Washington talks about in his book, Medical Apartheid, if you look at page, hold on real quick, y'all. Just make sure you subscribe and share, because like I said, we have to control our narrative and we have to have conversations like this, because if you don't know that this took place, then you honestly believe that this healthcare system is going to actually improve your health. This is the same healthcare system that was around during that time. Only thing that changed was the actual calendar year. That's the only thing that changed. And so once again, one of the quotes that Harry Washington talks about, this is a quote from a doctor who was a part of the public health services. And this is what he says. He says, the future of the Negro lies more in research laboratory than the schools. The future of the Negro lies more in the research laboratory than in the school. When diseased, he should be registered and forced to take treatment before he offers his diseased mind and body on the altar of academic and professional education. So kind of let that sink in. These were the doctors of that time as far as how they saw black people. Now, what they really believe. So as far as the differences between African American and Caucasian men, they really believe that these conditions were racially based. And so syphilis was considered to be a disease that only affected black people. Then once they saw it affected everybody, they said that syphilis only affects the cardiovascular system in black people. And when it comes to Caucasians, it affects the neurological system. It affects the brain. Why do they believe this? Well, they believed it because they still believe that their brains were bigger and bigger and better than the African American's brain. And so they wanted to see how syphilis will play out through their body. And this is one of the reasons why they sat back and watched for the 40 years as these men deteriorated and suffered to see how this all played out. And so they didn't believe that it would affect the neurological aspect of the black man, because they felt like their brains were smaller. And it didn't take long before it actually proved without the shadow of a doubt that it affects both of y'all the same way. Your brain is no bigger than his brain. Stop that. But what did they do? They saw the information, they swept it under the rug. So, I mean, there was a lot of denial going on throughout this whole entire experiment. And so let's keep talking about it. So once again, these men were told that this study would only last for 6 months. The study lasted for 40 years. 6 months, 40 years. That's a huge gap. And every time the 6 months would pass by, they would say, we're making progress. We're going to have to do another 6 more months. And so these men were coming in on a daily basis for what they considered to be treatment. They were receiving injections of what? Who knows? They were also receiving pills, medications that they told was the actual treatment. Comes to find out that was just aspirin they were taking. They were just taking aspirin. But also, these men were receiving spinal taps. Do you know what a spinal tap is? This is when you have a large bore needle that is being placed into your spine. And it's extremely, extremely painful. And so what they were doing was actually using the serum. The serum is the clear fluid from the blood to actually come up with the treatment. And so they were literally making the treatment off the backs of these men. A treatment that they would come up with and never actually give to these men. 600 men, right? So It wasn't within after 8 years after the study started, they actually came up with the treatment. They came up with the cure. 8 years in the study, they came up with the cure, and it was called penicillin. We're all familiar with penicillin now. Penicillin is an antibiotic, but penicillin is also the cure for syphilis. 8 years into the study, right? You think those men got that antibiotic? You think they got the penicillin? Nope. And so another interesting part in inside of the movie of Miss Evers' Boys, if you go and check out that movie, so Lawrence Fishburne, he play I think his name was Caleb in the movie. So he plays the radical Negro, right? He plays the radical Negro because he doesn't trust them any. He doesn't trust the government. He doesn't trust the medical system, and he doesn't. And he started to stop trusting Eunice Rivers, who was the nurse. And so he actually went off into the military. And when he went into the military, they gave him the antibiotic called penicillin, and that cured his syphilis. And so when he came back home, he saw how all of his friends were suffering with the syphilis. It was progressing. Syphilis is something that progresses, it goes into actual stages. And so when he came back, he saw how his friends were actually suffering. It was getting to the point where the neurological effects were taking over the people's they couldn't really walk, they couldn't really stand up straight, they didn't really have the strength, they were just in extreme pain. And there's a scene in that movie where Lawrence Fishburne comes over and he's in his military clothing, and one of the men had just fallen down because he's having a hard time standing up, and Lawrence Fishburne says he needs an antibiotic, he needs penicillin. And so so Eunice Rivers is right there as well as the other friends, and she says, she was like, "Shut up! What do you know? You don't know what you're talking about." And so once again, Eunice Rivers is still under. She was under the belief that they were actually treating these people, trying to get them healthy. Seriously, like she really believed that they were really trying to get them healthy. And so she says in the movie, you don't know what you're talking about. And he says, "Yes, I do. They gave me an antibiotic. I'm completely healthy now." And so there were people on the outskirts of this community that were actually receiving treatment. Um, there were actually clinics popping up after they came up with the actual cure of syphilis. You had clinics that were popping up on the outskirts of Tuskegee, and they were actually administering penicillin as the cure for syphilis. And the men in that group who were actually being treated for syphilis by this research, they actually wanted to actually go out there and get that treatment, but they were discouraged by the whole entire medical staff because they were telling them that don't believe them. Those doctors are quacks. So they were using that word quacks again. They told them that the doctors that are out there administering the antibiotics, they're quacks. They even said that they were racist. They said that it was a trick, it was a scheme. And so what they used was fear. They used fear again to keep those men from not going to those clinics and staying with them as they administered nothing to them, and as they stood back and actually watched how this disease took place. And so once again, you've probably heard me say this multiple times, but there's nothing behind that curtain. There's nothing behind this curtain at all. It's ran off of our faith in this illusion, and it's ran off of our fears. And so once again, let me go ahead and take a break. Like I said, I'll be on that channel talking about more things specific to men, such as blood pressure, testosterone, prostate issues, just a lot of things that we should really address and deal with. Because once again, who's going to do it for you? Who are you going to trust to do it for you? Surely not the people we just finished talking about. And yes, I'm a medical practitioner. I practice medicine down here in Florida. And many of these conditions, and so that's my job, that's my mission. We're here to aggressively inspire and radically improve the health conditions of our community. I'm here to let you know that many of these things that we're calling diseases are not diseases. Once again, there's nothing behind the curtain. It's an illusion. It's an illusion, and it's ran off of our fears. It's ran off of our actual faith in this illusion. And so what I really want to get to, because the cure for syphilis, the cure for syphilis is penicillin. And so what I really want to get to is this whole term of bad blood, because I want to bring that up to date as far as 2019. because in 2019, we're still calling high blood pressure, diabetes, obesity. We're still calling these lifestyle conditions, these preventable conditions. We're still claiming that it is something genetic. We're claiming that it's something hereditary. And I know why we believe that. Because we've been told that. And we constantly say that these things just run in our family. Well, I'm here to let you know that they don't run in your family. What runs in your family is the actual lifestyle, the eating habits, the mindset, the way you deal with stress, the things you drink, the things you smoke. Those those are the things that runs in your family, the actual lifestyle, the habits. But as far as there being a high blood pressure gene, it doesn't exist. As far as there being a type 2 diabetes gene, it doesn't exist. And so if it doesn't exist, why are we claiming it the way those brothers and sisters claim bad blood back then? And what are the results of claiming these things? How does it affect our community now? And how is it going to continue to affect our community 20, 50 years out from now? Well, let's just look at what it's done. Our conditions as pertains to preventable diseases, high blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease, even strokes, all these things that can be prevented, our numbers have only increased. They've only gone up. What else is going up? What else is going up? Medications have gone up in our community. Even though the medications have gone up, our death rates have also increased as well. What else is going up? Well, dialysis clinics have gone up, specifically in our communities. And how do we get to dialysis clinics? Like, how does one make it to actual dialysis clinic? How does one actually make it to being a dialysis patient? Because this is not something that happens overnight. There's actually a journey. There's actually a pipeline. How does that take place? Well, there has to be damage to the kidney for multiple years. Like there has to be a long history of kidney disease because for the most part, the body can heal itself. The body can repair itself. It just needs for us to get out the way. And so the body's strong, the body's intelligent, the body can repair itself and heal itself. But when we constantly assault it with the foods, I told you the standard American diet is the nutritional colonizer. But when we constantly bring in foods and drinks that are going to cause damage to our bodies, cause damage to our kidneys, cause damage to our hearts, our eyes, our legs, cause damage to our bodies overall. It's only so long our body can deal with that damage on a daily basis. And so in the case of kidney disease, we're looking at kidney disease that is taking place from stage 1. It keeps on happening on a daily basis. Stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, stage 5. So much so the kidney is supposed to be a filter. The kidney is supposed to actually filter the liquid, the liquid in your body, the water. It's supposed to be your like your sewage, your filtration, your water system. It's supposed to actually purify the blood and take out the toxins, excrete it, hold on to the things that are beneficial, like the electrolytes, keep those in, and keep the blood running clean. But when we're constantly putting in things in our body, such as the standard American diet, the processed foods, that is extremely stressful in our body. When we're constantly having spikes in our glucose, and that glucose is trying to go throughout, be filtered through the kidney, that is extremely stressful for our body. Especially when we look at the actual Chinese restaurants that we see in our food in our communities. Chinese restaurants, you're not really going to find many items on that menu that is not considered to be nephrotoxic. Nephrotoxic means it's toxic to your nephrons. Nephrons are the actual functional unit of the kidney. And so when those nephrons in the actual glomerulus is being damaged on a daily basis, no matter how small or how big, it's only so long before that kidney actually fails. And when the kidney fails, you are now going to be placed on dialysis. Dialysis is a machine that will now do the job of your kidney, kinda. It's a machine that you have to actually be hooked up to via a port, and you will have to be committed to doing this therapy 3 to 4 times a week for 3 to 4 hours out of the day. As pertains to dialysis, what you should also think about is the actual cost, the actual cost of a dialysis clinic in general. I'm not saying that because of, your insurance and how can we lower the cost of healthcare. No, 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 no. How profitable is a Dallas clinic? How profitable is it? Well, let me tell you, Dallas clinics have an extremely low overhead. Low overhead means how much money do I have to actually put out to actually get this thing running? And how much money am I going to get back in? And the gap between the actual overhead and the actual profit, I'm sorry, the gap between the overhead and the actual income, the revenue, is going to be your profit. And so when we look at something such as a Dallas clinic where you have machines that are actually doing the work, so you pay out for the actual machine, you have techs. You have like Dallas techs. You have techs that are actually doing a lot of the connections, and then you have maybe one or two doctors that will have to supervise the whole thing going on. You may have a nurse there, but the point of the story is that you have a very small staff. You don't need many people to actually run a Dallas clinic. You have a very small staff. The salary for a doctor versus a tech, there's a huge gap between that as well too. So you can have multiple techs and one doctor. And this doctor doesn't have to be a functioning doctor. This doctor doesn't even have to have the ability to stand up. You can just prop him up in the wall like Weekends at Uncle Bernie. And as long as he has like the MD and he is a certified license, prop him up in the corner and then let us do what we do. So he's getting his little cut. The He or she is getting their cut. The techs are getting their cut. You might have a couple of nurses as well too. Their salary is a little bit more, but each patient, and I know this is difficult for some of us to hear, but like I said, the reason why we remain complacent is because we don't know these things. The reason why we are expecting other people to take care of us or help us out as it pertains to our health is because we're not aware of these things. And so all I'm doing is bringing light to the fact that you can't depend on a system that was designed to see you fail actually heal you. And if you feel like that is a harsh statement, once again, you're only saying that because you haven't read this book. And so when we're talking about the dollars, so how much is each patient worth? Well, back in 2015, when I did the research, and I'm still doing research now, back in 2015, when I did the research, a Dallas patient was worth at least $90,000 a year, at least, at least. And here's the kicker. If you don't have the money for it or you don't have the insurance for it, don't worry. Don't worry. The government got you. Government funded. We got you. They got you. So if you need dialysis, they're gonna get you on that machine by any means. Like they're gonna get you on that machine. We're gonna cover it. We're gonna pay for it somehow. And so when we look at the journey or the pipeline to an actual dialysis clinic, how does it happen? Once again, we're talking about years and years of injury to the kidneys. What causes the actual injury to the kidneys? They'll tell you blood pressure. They'll tell you diabetes. They'll tell you, also the food. But what about the medications? Because surely you're not going to give me a medication to treat a condition you said will cause the actual kidney disease, and that medication at the same time is causing damage to my kidneys. Like surely they wouldn't do that, right? Like surely hydrochlorothiazide wouldn't cause any damage to the kidney, right? So what I'm not going to do, I'm not going to sit here and just list off medications, because at the same time, I want to make sure that I'm responsible with this. What I will tell you to do is go back and watch the videos that I've done on this channel, nutritional colonization. I've done videos on blood pressure. I've done videos on PCOS. I've done videos on multiple things. Go back and watch those videos. You can also go to my website, hbamn.com, hbamn.com, and read the blog articles that I have as well too. And so, because at the end of the day, we have what it takes to deal with these things that they're saying is actually causing these conditions to take place. High blood pressure, not only is it preventable, but it's also reversible. Same thing with diabetes, preventable and reversible. Same thing with cholesterol, preventable and reversible. So I'm not just here to bring or tell you about the problem. So we talked about the Tuskegee syphilis experiment. Honestly, there's multiple things we can deal with in this experiment. I mean, this experiment, as far as what has taken place. But my point of the whole thing is that you really want to put your life, your health, in a system that has shown you time after time after time we don't like you like that. Like, and it's not a secret, and I'm not making this up. Like, you can actually go and read the receipts. Like, you can actually go and read it. And so we're gonna let's forget about Henrietta Lacks. Let's forget about the Tuskegee experiment. Let's forget about Anarcha Westcott, which I did a video on her last Sunday. Let's forget about the fact that this is a 40-year experiment where the government stood back and just watched the whole thing fall out. They watched how the whole thing played out. We're talking about doctors, nurses, public officials that just stood back and watched. Now, who was there for these people when their wives and their family and their kids had to sit back and watch their fathers, who they probably felt like was a hero to them, who they felt like was out there putting in that work, protecting and providing for them? Who was there for that family while they had to sit back and actually watch their husbands, their fathers, their men suffer? Because that's what happened. They suffered. You had grown men having great difficulty sleeping at night because of the pain. Couldn't have relations with their wife because of the pain and because of the disease. We're talking about, they estimated, and I don't know how you can actually tell, but they estimate that 40 of their wives, of these men wives, were actually infected with the condition. So somebody asked him, what's the name of the book that I held up? This book is called Medical Apartheid by Harriet Washington. Medical Apartheid. I recommend that everybody gets this book. I recommend everybody gets this book because, like I said, it is a disconnection in our history that is the reason I believe that we are remaining complacent. Too many of us are remaining complacent. Too many of us expect for this healthcare system to actually help us heal. No, there's too much money to be made. There's too much money to be made. Like, you don't think this country has a history of making money off you? After all that we've been through, when we look at our timeline here in America, why do we think, why do we trust, why do we feel that this system will now all of a sudden be like, you know what? My bad. We got you. We're going to give you the best medicines. We're going to give you the best health treatment. We're going to give you the best everything. No, we got to do it on our own. We have to do it, and we should do it on our own. It only makes sense that we do it on our own. Like, how many times are we going to get hustled before we understand that we have to do it on our own? So, what is my recommendations? What's some recommendations? Because I'm not just going to sit here and ramble off all these atrocities that took place. Like I said, the purpose of this is just to activate you. We need to be activated because when I read this information for the first time, I don't know what year it was exactly, there was an enormous amount of anger, and but it got to that point where I was like, what am I going to do with this anger? Am I actually going to do something with it, or am I actually going to do something with it? So same question, but in different ways. And what I decided to do was, go through the actual schooling, learn medicine, learn all those things, bring it back to my community, and figure out what the hell is going on. Like, why are our rates of everything so high versus everybody else? And the reason is, one, because we believe, like I said, we believe that we are innately defective. And when I say that, I mean that if you are saying that it runs in my family when it comes to these preventable conditions, then you innately believe it. Who gave you that idea? Who gave you that actual story? Who told you that these things just run in your family? Who told you that? Surely it was, please don't tell me it was the people who enslaved you, raped you, castrated you, Jim Crowed you, prison pipeline you, Henrietta Lacks. Please don't tell me it was that group. That turned around and tell you that, hey, these things just run in your family. It just runs in your family. No, let that go. Don't you know that we have our own systems? We have our own traditional African systems. We have our own way of looking at health. We have our own way of looking at quote unquote disease and sickness. We have our own way of appreciating herbs. We have our own way of appreciating fasting, which is my ultimate recommendation. Fasting is my gospel. Fasting is our first line of defense and offense. So the colonizers told you to eat 6 small meals a day. The colonizers told you to eat every 2 to 3 hours. Your fasting says, your ancestors said fast. Your ancestors said 1 meal a day. So 6 small meals a day is what the colonizers gave you. Fasting is what the ancestors left you. Who you gonna believe? Because we see how it's working out when we're doing the whole 2 to 3 hours, the 6 small meals, as if we need that much food. As if like that's our problem. We need more food. That's our problem. Of course they would feed you that. Like I told you, the standard American diet is the nutritional colonization. It is the nutritional version of colonization. When you're eating those foods that have no interest on actually improving your health whatsoever. I don't care what the box says. I don't care what the label says. I don't care what it says about now made with real vitamin C, now made with folic acid. I don't care about any of that stuff. If your food has the ability to brag, you should run away from it. You should leave it alone. Your food shouldn't brag. Your food should be humble. Your food shouldn't even have a label. That's what I recommend. Because if you're eating that food, I told you, what do colonizers do? Colonizers come in and they exploit you. They take away your valuable resources and give you nothing. They give you nothing but a symbolic victory. And so when we're looking at processed foods, you got to understand that when you're eating those processed foods, especially the highly refined carbohydrates, it's not benign. Not only are these foods going to actually make you have a sharp increase in your glucose, which now has to be compensated by the response of insulin, in order to break down these refined carbohydrates, your body has to use a lot of magnesium and calcium. So now we see that ma'at is being disregarded because there's no balance. You have foods that you're taking in that are robbing you of your magnesium and your calcium. Magnesium, anybody who is magnesium deficient is going to be automatically insulin resistant. It's a fact. So when we look at these things, these foods that actually cause all of this stress on our bodies, they don't give you any real nutrients because any nutrients that was placed in the actual food is synthetic, and synthetic vitamins and minerals do not work in the body the same way real vitamins and minerals that you get from food. When's the last time you ate a salad, kale, had a smoothie, and then turned around and peed out bright yellow neon urine? It's never happened. I mean, I would assume it's never happened. I mean, but because it doesn't work like that. But when was the last time you've taken in synthetic vitamins and turned around and urinated bright yellow neon colored urine? Because your body's not absorbing it. Your body's like, what the hell is this? And so when you're seeing all those nutrients that they're saying is in your food that they added to it, it doesn't really mean much. It doesn't mean much. So we have to get back to fasting. Fasting is your first line of offense and defense. I recommend, of course, all fasting is intermittent fasting unless you're no longer eating at all. But don't get it twisted. Fasting is extremely old. Fasting is something that was always a basic principle of our traditions. Don't let these people fool you into thinking that they just came up with fasting. Nah. When you look on the papyrus papers, I forgot the name of the one, but fasting was something that was recommended before marriage. Fasting was recommended something before for somebody who had a great deal of depression, anxiety. Anybody they felt was possessed, they recommended fasting. Fasting was recommended for great health. The highest of the highest in those societies would make sure that they did a regimen of fasting. Fasting has so much documents, and that's the thing. You're trying to tell me that these people who now know everything about medications and diabetes and high blood pressure, at the same time they're telling you about, what side effects to watch out for and what you should do for side effect and how to get to the emergency room if your tongue starts to swell up or your throat starts to swell up. Those same people will turn around and scare the shit out of you about fasting. This is true. If you go to your doctors and you ask them about fasting, like, oh, whoa, fasting, whoa, don't say the F word, like fasting, no. Don't starve yourself. That's what they'll do. They'll do the Island Opposite crossover. Don't starve yourself. That's not a healthy way of living. And this, they're gonna do all that stuff. Don't fast. You're gonna die. You're gonna starve. All these little vague, inaccurate things that they're giving you, right? But at the same time, now, yeah, take this prescription. It's an ACE inhibitor. It's called lisinopril. Now, many African Americans don't do well with it. So if you start to notice some like swelling in your lip or your throat start to itch or your tongue start to swell up, get your ass to the ER because you're having a reaction to it. But be calm. They'll make you calm about that, right? They'll tell you about the beta blockers. If you can't stand up and you feel lightheaded and everything like that, it's okay. It's because of the actual medication. Just stay calm and you can call 911. They'll embolden you about the side effects that you're about to experience from the actual medication they just wrote you, right? They'll tell you about how you got to watch out for this medication taking away the potassium, the very thing that you actually need to actually normalize your blood pressure. They will embolden you and make you feel good about the potential hives that might break out on your neck if you take this medication. They'll embolden you about the potential of the erectile dysfunction that you're going to have when you take this medication. But don't worry, we got Viagra. We go. I'm gonna go ahead and write that for you because I know you're gonna experience it. So they'll tell you about the side effects and then embolden you about the side effects. But fasting, oh no. Mm-mm. No. Don't do that. Don't do that. You're trying to kill yourself. Don't do that. Well, what you need to understand is that these medications and these procedures and these devices that they're recommending to all of us, that shit just got here. They just came up with these things. They just came up with it. It was studied in a lab for 90 days. They don't go past, they're trying not to go past 90 days because after 90 days, there's a tendency around 100 for shit to go down. And so they test it for a very little time, and then they put it out to the population, and they sit back and see, that group's not doing good with it. Oh, okay, this group's still doing okay with it. It's depleting their B12, but we got vitamins for them. And so they'll sit back, come up with these new medications that just got here, and the medication that they just created was only made because of the last medication and the side effects, and now they have a black box warning on it. But what you need to know about fasting has been here for millions of years, and it's been practiced on billions of people without any issues, right? So who are you going to believe? Johnny come lately or the ancestors? So if you want any information about fasting, like I said, fasting is my gospel. I'm extremely passionate about fasting because it is our first line of offense and defense. You can take all the herbs you want. You can do sit-ups, you can do all those things. But if you're still bringing in the actual colonizer, the actual foods that's going to colonize your bodies, it doesn't matter. So that's why I sell herbs on my website. Yeah, I have those things but don't even buy it if you plan on taking in the actual, if you plan on bringing in the colonizers, the actual troops, the outside troops to colonize your body, what are you really doing? So let me try to read these questions. I'm sorry. I tend to go off on a tantrum. So we are controlling the narrative. We are delivering value to our people, and we have to continue to do this. Who do you expect to give you the truth? Who? Malcolm X said, the first step in a revolution, the first step the enemy will do in a revolution is take over the media. He said radio, but we updated it. He said the first step that the enemy will take in a revolution is to take over the radio. And then from the radio, he's going to tell the people that the war is over. The war is over. Put down your guns. Everything's good now. We won. We made it. And that's what's happening because, if we're going to sit back and believe that these things are going to get better. So we have everything it takes. We have everything we need. We have everything and we all we need. It's our community, it's our responsibility. Like I said, decrease or stop the nutritional colonization, which is the processed foods. If you're bringing in those foods, it's only but so long. Eat real whole foods. Eat real whole foods. Also, we got to move more. We have to move more. We are not designed to sit. Sitting for long periods of time is actually stressful in the body. It's stressful in the actual spine. We're not designed for that. We're designed to actually get up and move around, and we remain stagnant. And stagnation is a harbinger of death. Get sunlight. So we believe that sunlight is a vitamin, and it's not a vitamin. It's actually a hormone. And largely, we are hormonally deficient when it comes to vitamin D or hormone D. We have to get out to that sun. Once again, don't allow them to tell you that you need sunscreen. Like, what else would they tell you? You're not all of us, of course, but you can't expect the polar bear to teach the brown bear how to live a good life. If the brown bear is taking the advice of the polar bear, he's going to be jacked up. He's going to be jacked up. Because the polar bear is going to teach him what he knows, which is how to be a polar bear. And the brown bear is a brown bear. The polar bear requires a cold climate. The polar bear requires little sun. The polar bear has a diet that's high in fat because of the actual food in its environment. Whereas the polar bear, the brown bear, you need that sun. The sun is everything for you. You have a diet that's full with berries and sticks and fiber. You have a very high fiber diet. Your jaw is very different. Your jaw is actually built. I'm talking about brown bears. I'm not talking about us for real. But the jaws are very different. But also that brown bear requires high amounts of vitamin D. Very different diet. And if you cross the two or you make one do what the other one does, even though they're both bears, well, one is going to survive and thrive, and the other one is going to lose its freaking mind because everything that it is doing is extremely unnatural. So essentially, as a group, we are outside of our natural minds. We're working towards getting back into it, and we really have to look at what the ancestors left. We really have to look back and grab the information that was left for us because that is our saving grace. And once again, that's one of the first things you have to do in a revolution. When you come in and colonize somebody, once again, you got to make sure you take over the media, and you have to make sure that you demonize their ancestors. You have to make sure that you demonize all of their traditions because their traditions and their ancestors holds the answers for anything that they're about to experience. Therefore, get rid of them. Tell them that they're primitive. Tell them that they're backwards. Whatever you got to do, get rid of them. Call them devils if you got to, but get rid of them. And that's what happens. So, so I talked about you got to drink water, vitamin D, cut down or cut out the processed foods, eat real whole foods, and fasting. Fasting is everything. Fasting is everything. Like I said, go to my website or go to my social media, H-BAMN, Health BAMN, to get more information on it. And yeah, so I hope I provided some value today. So make sure you grab this book, Medical Apartheid. Medical Apartheid, I don't have any affiliation with it or anything like that, but I just believe that's a book that we all should read. And if we understood the atrocities that took place, we would remain so complacent as pertains to our healthcare. We need to be our primary care providers for ourselves as well as our family. And we need to understand how prevention is way better than actually trying to reverse something. But when it is time to reverse something, there's 5 questions that I told you we need to ask. There's 5 questions. Is it preventable? Yes or no? Is it reversible? Yes or no? Do the medications actually help out? Like, do the medications actually work as far as mortality and morbidity? Are there any natural alternatives? And then I forgot what the last one was, but I did a video on that. My last video was about better medication versus better education. So make sure you check out that video. That was a real good video too. All right, so I appreciate y'all. Let me try to read through these comments real quick. All right, let's see. No problem. You're very welcome. You're very welcome. All right, so no sunscreen. And if you are lighter skin, like very, very fair, black, African American, whatever we call ourselves these days. If you are very fair skinned, then use something like coconut oil or shea butter. As far as trying to decrease that. Yeah, intermittent fasting definitely works. Fasting 14 to 18 hours a day, except weekends. Great, good. No problem. Thank you. Eat real whole foods. Move your body. Definitely. Get more sunlight. Drink water and have a fasting plan. Thank you, Carmela. Thank you for that. All right, y'all. So, yeah, we don't need no sunscreen. Take it easy with the sunscreen. If you feel like you really need sunscreen, then use coconut oil or shea butter. We love some shea butter. All right, so fasting allows your body to digest. Yeah, fasting is, if you want to talk about magic or what the body can truly do. So you don't even know yourself until you've been in a fasted state. Facts. You don't even know who you are until you've been in a fasted state. Because once again, we talk about the itis in our community, right? We joke about the itis. We talk about the itis. Well, the itis is essentially high blood sugar plus high insulin, right? That's what it is. Most people think there's something about tryptophan and they only associate it with Thanksgiving time. But say word, tell me you haven't eaten a dinner or eaten a meal of a lot of carbohydrates, whether it be pancakes, rice, whatever you're doing, however you get down. You can take somebody who had a lot of ambition had goals, things they were going to do for that day, and you put a plate of pancakes or rice or something with a lot of carbohydrates and watch them be like, yeah, man, I'll do that tomorrow. I'll do that tomorrow. Your ambitions are gone. Any kind of inspiration you had is gone. You want to go take a nap. You feel very sleepy. So what I'm saying is that when you have no idea what fasting is and you're not actually practicing fasting, you're walking in a perpetual itis state because you don't have that mental clarity. You don't, trust me, you don't know mental clarity until you've been fasting for 2 to 3 days. You don't know mental clarity. And you can ask anybody in this chat who's done it. You won't find anybody who's actually practiced fasting that doesn't speak about the actual mental clarity that they get. And so what I'm saying for you is that when you start practicing fasting and you are able to bring your insulin levels down to a point where you are no longer sympathetically dominant, but more so parasympathetically dominant, the clarity, the logics, all of those things, people start to have all these ideas. People, friends and family might call them crazy at that point because now they want to, we're going to start this organization. I'm going to start this business. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. You get extremely inspired. You get extremely ambitious. But that never happens if you're eating every 2 to 3 hours. That never happens if you're eating 6 small meals. And that never happens if you're afraid of fasting because your doctor told you it was starvation. None of this stuff takes place. So once again, if you need any information about fasting, head over to my social media, Instagram, as well as Facebook, H-BAMN. My name is in the description right now. So H-BAMN, that's health by any means necessary, H-E-A-L-T-H-B-A-M-N. All right, y'all. So I appreciate y'all. My kids out here going crazy. I'm going to go ahead and get off. Thank y'all so much for spending this Sunday for me. Are grits healthy? No. Nah, grits. Grits are going to definitely increase that blood sugar and the actual insulin. And you're going to have to use a lot of magnesium to break those carbohydrates down. Grits are definitely not healthy. All right. So I'm off, y'all. I appreciate it. I'll be back on Tuesday and Thursday this week talking about, I'll be on Tuesday and Thursday at 11 p.m. And I'll be talking about, I don't know what y'all want me to talk about. I may talk about testosterone with men. I already spoke about PCOS. Make sure if you have any questions about PCOS, go back and watch the video I did on PCOS. I did a video on blood pressure as far as the medication recalls that continuously happens over and over and over, right? I wonder why. Make sure you go back and watch that video. I did a video on, did I already say that? Nutritional colonization. Why it's so important that we actually understand the nutrition, what nutritional colonization is, and we actually understand how our bodies are responding. These things we're calling diseases are actually our body adapting to the stresses. What we are calling a disease, such as high blood pressure and diabetes, is our body's best attempt at actually adapting to the daily stresses. What do you want your body to do if you have a restriction? What do you want your body to do if your arteries are stiff? What do you want your body to do if you have blocked arteries? And behind that blocked artery, you have 37 trillion cells that need blood right now. Those blood cells need nutrients, oxygen, and they have waste. If you can't get the blood to those cells, what do you want your body to do? Remain at that perfect 120/80? Is that what you want the body to do? Well, if that happens, then you're going to go into what they call hyperperfusion, which means low perfusion of blood, and you're going to go into what they call shock, meaning that you're not getting any blood flow, and then you're going to have what they call ischemia happen, which ultimately you die. So without high blood pressure, you die. Without type 2 diabetes, you die. You die right then and there. There's no following up with your doctor. There is no checkup in 3 months. No, you die right then and there. If your body doesn't have the ability to downregulate those insulin receptors, if your body doesn't have the ability to actually increase the insulin from your pancreas, if your body doesn't have the ability to actually constrict your blood vessels or constrict or increase the contractility, if your body cannot adapt to the stresses that we're taking in on a daily basis, then we die right then and there. But what happened? I told y'all, Malcolm X said the first thing in a revolution, the enemy has to take over the actual media. I'm telling you that the processed foods that we're eating are nutritional colonizers. What is their media? What would be their version of the media? Well, their version of media is going to be the medical system. Their version of the media is going to be your practitioners. Their version of the media is going to be the insurance companies. Their version of the media is going to be any and everything that's actually describing and informing you on what these conditions are. And as we've seen from a historical standpoint, the explanation may not always be correct. And if the information is correct, they'll give you enough truth and then they'll ball it up or encapsulate it with a big falsehood. So you're getting your information about the actual condition or how your body is responding from the actual partner of the colonizer. Of course, your blood pressure is bad. That's what you're going to be told. Of course, you having insulin resistance is horrible. And since it's horrible, take these medications. And many times when you're taking those medications, I just got to tell you like it is, you're deactivating your armed forces because your body's not randomly increasing blood pressure. Your body's not randomly increasing blood sugar or randomly decreasing insulin receptors. It's doing that to protect itself, and it's doing that to keep you alive. What we need to do is actually stop bringing in the nutritional colonizers. All right, so I hope that made sense. If it doesn't, make sure you go check out those videos, all right? Somebody asked about PCOS. PCOS stands for polycystic ovarian syndrome. Polycystic ovarian syndrome. PCOS or polycystic ovarian syndrome is essentially diabetes of the ovaries. I know, sounds crazy. Watch the video, see what I'm talking about. Men, you have a similar version as well too. When we talk about hypogonadism or gynecomastia, where the actual chest tissue start turning to breast tissue, where you have the hormonal switch of estrogen and testosterone, that comes from insulin resistance as well too. So go check out that video. Let me know what y'all want me to talk about next, and I'm here to serve. All right, and take 1 second. Like I said, if you haven't shared the video, please share it. If you haven't liked it, please like it. If you haven't spread the word about the new media, our new media, if you haven't done that, please go do so. All right. So I appreciate you all, and we'll holla.